going to be covering a very important topic, which is the expansion of Rakuten Symphony's partner program. Now, for the last 2 years, Rakuten Symphony has prioritized the expansion of its global partner program already to great effect. This has involved the onboarding of systems integrators, regional sales partners, and technology providers to deliver better service to customers across the world. In this next session, we'll be covering how 2 such partners and 1 customer are already receiving better outcomes through this model. Thank you very much for joining me today, gentlemen. Just to get us started, though, so our first speaker is Ali Kosi, the Chief Operating Officer of Telkom Kenya. So first question to you then, Ali, to get us started. Thank you very much for joining. So you have already made your first venture into cloud-native Open RAN. That, of course, promises automated software-driven outcomes. But for an operator like Telkom Kenya, what's the compelling case for adopting this versus opposed to staying with traditional vendors and traditional models?
Hello. Yeah, hi, thanks. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Thanks for that question. The reality of it is, in a competitive marketplace, you have in the Kenyan market 2 giant operators, Safaricom and Airtel, and both are global players in terms of they have group activities, group support, and so on. So the only way to be able to compete with existing giant operators in a competitive landscape is to really have a technological advancement. So we felt that Open RAN gives that technological advancement. It gives that technological advancement in 3 ways. In the first way that it gives it is actually the speed of deployment, because you can quickly deploy it in a sense where the radios, the sites we already have. So it's a matter of putting the radios on the sites and actually activating the back end on the network and the software. So ease of deployment is a first challenge. And then the ability to be able to actually manage that infrastructure in a cost-effective way. So in terms of the OPEX, the power generation, the load sharing between the sites is also an advantage. And really the third fundamental point is downstream. In 5 years' time, 2 years' time, 6 years' time down the road, a traditional vendor will not give us the competitive advantage over the existing 2 giant sort of competitive operators. Because with OpenAI, it basically means that we can just control the software centrally and introduce different services, different segments, different technologies at a central point. So that is really the main advantage that we have with OpenAI deployment from Rakuten. That's it really in a nutshell. I could talk on for a long time.
We could talk about this for a long time, right? But greater flexibility, future-proofing your network, and all manner of operational benefits there. Thank you very much, Ali, for getting us started. Ismail, I'm going to move over to you next. So let's talk about regional data center infrastructure in the Middle East, Turkey, and Africa region. Let's talk about its readiness and the ways that you are helping local customers to make sure that they have the platform needed to deliver the best possible services.
As we help them. Now they don't only ask for power and space. They ask for connectivity and deployment. Fast deployment is more important than the space and the power now. We help them, we give them flexibility to operate, and we give them fast-paced deployments and help them to operate easily, actually. And we provide them the edge places, edge nodes to deploy them fast. And they need to close the customer, close the transaction. So they do it very neat and fast.
And have you architected your facilities with cloud-native telco and enterprise workloads in mind? And has that created new requirements for your business?
Actually, actually we them is the edge deployment, as we said. So the deploying it edge and doing it near the customer is more important now instead of rack space and electricity.
Thank you very much, Ismail. Tarkan, thank you very much for joining us today as well. So as an important regional partner to us, Odine are integrating Rakuten Symphony's solution across the Middle East, Turkey and Africa regions. In your experience, what's been the main difference between implementing Symphony's platforms compared to those of traditional vendors? And are there any specific challenges that customers face when it comes to this transition?
Once we talk about transition, it's not about changing technologies. I mean, there are different vendors out there or customers seeking new technologies, and these years the technologies developing quite fast, and we have to adapt ourselves this transition. Transition is not just swapping technologies. It's like focused end-to-end migration plan, and it has to be done on a phased approach. I mean, you cannot just ask your customers and say that we're going to change your technology, bring even Rakuten, if we say one of the most innovative solutions, you cannot just ask and tell them, convince them, swapping all technologies. It has to be done on phased approach. And with this phased approach, we have to plan first and then find the owner of this project, let's say, and then execute wisely. And it's not only technically a solution that has to be fitting to your customer. It has to be a solution that has to be, it needs to survive, and continuity is the key. What we're saying to our customers, like Ismail mentioned, customers are seeking connectivity, but we're saying we're not providing connectivity. We're providing from connectivity to intelligence. We have to intelligize the networks and the solutions that has been provided. Rakuten is one of the most innovative solution providers that has been differentiating, coming to your question, in the market. What customers are seeking, not providing the technology. They're seeking intelligence. That's why everywhere we're seeing AI is booming, right? Everyone is adding new technologies on top of intelligence. That's where I see Rakuten is a key differentiator.
Thank you very much, Tarkan. Over to you now, Shadi. Thank you very much for joining us today. From your perspective, what are the main market drivers and customer pain points that make the open and cloud-native model particularly attractive for the Middle East, Turkey, and Africa region?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank Odine, Telkom Kenya, and Radore for joining this panel. So for us in the META region, it's very diversified. So if you look at the economics, we have different categories. You have the guys who are already at the 5G, discussing 6G, AI, and so on. Then you have the different category where you have like 11 countries, few countries in Africa where they already launched 5G and they are already started the AI journey. And then the third is where majority of the other African markets where they still rely, on 2G, 3G, and LTE. So what's interesting there is that in each of those categories, there are different challenges and different pain points. If you look at the markets like Turkey, we currently see that 60 to 70% of the revenues of our customers are going into the maintenance of the existing infrastructure, legacy infrastructure. So that's really something that should look at how we can help them, reduce their OPEX to be able to invest in R&D and future and so on. Second, I always say that when we talk about 5G and 6G and AI, it's like you have the fastest car in the world. But how you will be able to leverage on this car, it's not only about having the fastest car. For me, you have to have four things to be successful. First of all, you need the car itself. So here as Rakuten, we can provide the software, cloud native software, we can provide our Open RAN, we can provide our OSS. And then here there is a role actually that SI plays a very unique role in the car itself, because Formula One cars, it's a assembly. It's not like you go to one shop and get it. So they are here to assemble this solution with the hardware vendor, with the software, and put everything together. Number two, you need a driver. So driver here is Telkom Kenya, is Radore. Also, they have to have the right skills, and they have to trust also the car and the ecosystem to be able to take it forward. Third is about the pit stops. So you need to have pit stops everywhere, and this is like the edge data center. So this is something like Radore already is investing and already there. And in the pit stop also there is a role that the SI Odine can play in terms of the crew of the pit stop to change immediately less than 3 seconds. So that's where edge is becoming important, latency is becoming important. And last but not least, you need also the road, and the roads has to be ready for this journey. It has to be also open. You cannot design a road only for a Ferrari. It has to be across all the cars. And here also the role of Open RAN, cloud native open technologies, that we are building this road and access network to be open and to cater for any kind of cars out there. So last but not least, I want to mention, because this is something important for the safety of and security of you can go speed, but you need also safety. So you need seat belt, you need OSS dashboard, you need automation, and so on. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Shadi. So just back to you, Ali. I'm keen to ask, or keen to hear as well from your own experience. So the basic premise of Open RAN is that you can deliver better OPEX and CAPEX, better operations through mixing best of breed components. But what's the reality like on the ground when it comes to integrating the RAN, the core, the cloud infrastructure? Do you face on the ground challenges, or are there other specific challenges in, say, the Kenyan market that you think need to be addressed?
Thanks. It's a very good question, because it gives insights into the experiences of how this Open RAN actually is deployed. One of the fundamental challenges that Open RAN sort of gives operators in developing economies is it requires a very good fiber infrastructure, which is usually not the case in a lot of African, Middle Eastern, Asian developing economies. That in itself provides, because the speed has got to be within a certain 5 milliseconds or within a certain parameter for Open RAN to work from the edge data center to the sites. And then that also creates other challenges, which is the vulnerability of that infrastructure, because a lot of the fiber sometimes is not in the ground. It's actually fiber on poles or on the air fiber. So you need to when you're doing your plans for the deployment, it has to be done in a resilient way. So resilience has got to be really looked at. If you look at, for example, the Open RAN deployment in Japan, Rakuten leases all the fiber capabilities from NTT Docomo, I think, in that sense. So there's an established ecosystem of resilience, of security, of respecting the fiber infrastructure that usually in Kenya, to be honest with you, is not there, because everybody can lay their own fiber, they can put it on poles, so it's easily cut. You'll have roadworks that will cut the fiber. So that brings a sort of a connectivity challenge in that sense. The other challenge is actually talking about the data center, bringing the edge data center as close as possible to an aggregation point of multiple sites. So when you are doing your planning, it's not in the traditional way of planning where you just plan where the sites need to be. You also need to plan where the edge data center needs to be to aggregate the traffic. So you have to think in a three-dimensional way. You have to think about the location of the radio site, the location of the edge data center, and the location of the fiber and the diversity of that fiber to bring in resilience. Because ultimately, that is what will impact your performance and your quality of service down the road. So these are the three fundamental challenges that we face. In additional to that, there is the power challenges. Because if you look at power, we take power for granted in a lot of the developed countries. European countries, Asian developed countries, power is taken for granted. If you look at like for example in Kenya, Kenya is very blessed. It's almost 100% renewable energy as a country. It produces its own energy renewable through thermal energy, wind turbines. So there's very little fossil fuel burning, and there's also solar energy as well. But it's the distribution of that energy is also a challenge as a network. So when you're looking, so I can't, for example, just put an edge data center or a data center without considering its power and its power limitations. So it's basic in terms of what we're trying to do. We're looking at the problem at both ends. One end is really high tech, open AI, and what we can do with that in terms of reducing OPEX and CAPEX. And on the other spectrum of the challenges is basic fundamental challenges like fiber security, fiber connectivity and resilience, power security, power connectivity and resilience. So it brings both of these challenges together, and it's very sensitive. If you look at traditional technologies like a 4G, not an open AI 4G, if you lose power to it and the power comes up again, the site almost brings itself up. With Open RAN, that is not really well tested as of today, because Open RAN has been developed in very advanced sort of infrastructure economies. So that is some of the challenges that we have in a sense. So conclusion, looking at both ends of the spectrum, advanced AI and latest technologies while still being challenged by the basics, fiber security and fiber resilience, and power security and power resilience are really the main challenges with launching such an open AI technology.
Thank you very much, Ali. Very, very comprehensive. A lot of bases covered there. Thank you. Tarkan, just back to you. So, based on your own experience working with Rakuten Symphony, what have been the main success factors you've learned from deploying our solutions across your markets? And where do you think SI expertise matters most in terms of technology integration or change management more broadly?
Especially, in our region, let's call it META, the customers or the demands are very diverse in the region. Some requires agility, some requires regulational dependencies. For sure, our region, due to inflation, it's everywhere, but at our region, the inflation and the economics is not helping us. So some has, financial constraints. The technology has to be global. That's what we are saying. Architecture has to be global. But as an SI, we're saying that execution has to be local. Their systems integrator like ours as Odine has put differentiation to the ground and implemented. The difficulties with customers, everyone is knowing Rakuten as a fancy name, high tech, openness. Everyone wants to build, but we know that the customers are hesitating, shying away, moving to these new technologies. That's what I learned on the field. A systems integrator is the glue that sticks that technologies to the operators. Also, again, in the region, regulations are forcing 5G deployments, and on another side, especially in Middle East and Turkey also, as one of the regions that seeks, policies that has to be applied. So Rakuten technologies are cutting edge solutions, but as NSI, we have to sometimes customize or regulate according to the field demands. That's what I can say we have learned.
In summary, sir, as you've said, global technology, local expertise, and partnerships is the way to the best
100%,
possible results.
yep.
Absolutely. Ismail, thank you very much. You've been very patient. So, how are you and telcos collaborating on edge deployments? Who invests in the infrastructure and who owns it, and how do you share revenue? And what maybe explain the dynamics of those models.
Actually, mostly in Turkey, telcos have their own data centers. They build their core data centers, but they cannot go to edge parts. In the investment part, we do the heavy investment as a data center. They put the connectivity part because the customer has different scenarios. And if the market is highly regulated market for enterprise part, then enterprise do the investments itself. So we serve them interconnectivity and the manage services part, and the telco gives them the interconnectivity or help them to connect the edge points or the other points fastly. So it changes according to the scenario, but mainly the infrastructure investment done by the data centers mostly, and the thing is they deploy it fast. So if customers have any pre-deployed or pre-invested environment, they go fastly. So it's important to do investment before the action. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Back to you, Shadi. So open platforms typically only succeed with strong ecosystems, strong networks of partnerships. What is your role in building Rakuten Symphony's partner network in the region, from SIs to infrastructure providers and customers? What would you like to see from these customers, partners, systems integrators in order to accelerate and maximize deployments?
No, definitely. First of all, I fully agree with you. And there is actually an African proverb. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go deep, go together. Or go far, go together. So that's really something I believe. So first of all, from Rakuten perspective, we are used to this building of ecosystem. First in Japan, we have more than 70 companies working together. So we are used to this kind of collaboration, first internally in-house, but also with all the other ecosystem we built in RMI and one-on-one. So we have really built a large scale, different players from hardware vendor to different parts of the puzzle. And we can definitely leverage on this experience to take it here locally. So now in the meta context, if you ask me what I expect more from we start with Odine, with SI. So first of all, I think they have the knowledge, they have the experience. We are really betting on them to take our partnership to the next level. So I think here what we are discussing is that a really strategic partnership. Sometimes they need to maybe manage their cash flow in a certain way. Sometimes it goes here and there. So this is something important. Market intelligence. We have a great story in Turkey, which I think we are doubling down there. For Telkom Kenya or Telco CSP, that the strategic choice is very important. So I think what Telkom Kenya has done is really to really think about the future, think about how they can leverage this openness, how to reduce their cost, to reduce their to be innovative in the market and so on. And this is something really, I think they are on the right track. And we are here to support them and to grow the business together. For Radore, I think they are already working on really selecting the future-proof technologies, and this is very important because all what you are building now on the edge is going to be the backbone for the next 10 and 15 years. So that's very important that you are really looking at long term. You are really looking how you can serve your customer on the long term, because the future is now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shadi. That pretty much brings us to time, actually, Jenna. We've pretty much raced through these questions, but thank you all very much for joining this discussion. It's been a pleasure hearing your perspectives. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to our panelists here. Thank you all very much.